mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 1 of HBO's Barry, entitled Forgiving Jeff. The title's pretty obvious. It comes from this kind of cool opening sequence that we get, where we kind of get a pretty good idea of just where Barry's mental state is. He's on this job. He's been hired by this guy to kill the person who his wife slept with. And as this is about to happen, apparently while Barry's like, I can't remember what he was all doing. I think he took a call or something. Apparently these two guys hashed it out. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't want to kill him anymore. And Barry shoots both guys and goes, there's no forgiving Jeff, because the guy wanted to forgive Jeff for sleeping with his wife. But that's just kind of goes to show just the kind of state that Barry is in when we start this season. I haven't talked about Barry before because it's been like 3 years since it's been on TV, and I've only been doing this channel for like about a year and a half, something like that. But Barry's a show that I've always really liked because it does a good job of, like, you get the comedy and you get the interesting hitman stuff, whether that's in the form of comedy or where there's just kind of like these side stories where he has to deal with these jobs. But then you also get a show that's willing to take some risks and do things that are a little bit more experimental, do things that are a little bit more risky. And I always like and appreciate that when a show is like, okay, we're going to do something different this episode, something a little bit out of the box, but we're going to see how it works out. And they had that really good episode last season with that little girl. That's probably the best episode of the show. But that episode just kind of took over whatever year that was that episode came out. But it's made me gain a new appreciation for Bill Hader post SNL. Like, I think he does really, really great acting work on this show as well. So lots of really good stuff. I was excited for it to come back. As of now, I don't really have a plan on whether or not I'm going to cover it week to week. It kind of depends on how well I think the videos perform. Is it worth it? Because right now I have so many things that I'm covering, and I think this is a mistake on my part. I have so many things that I'm covering that it's like some days are just too full of things, and I need some stuff to kind of like calm down. And then there's things that I know I want to cover. Like, I know I want to cover Better Call Saul. I know I want to cover We Own This City. You know, all of these things that I'm sure I want to cover. I don't know how I'm going to handle Barry, if I'm going to handle Barry. But with Winning Time ending in a couple weeks, I think that'll maybe help me be a little bit more comfortable with covering Barry as well. Plus, we're only talking about like a 30-minute show, more lighthearted, doesn't really require the level of dissection that I'm used to doing for shows like Better Call Saul or Succession or something like that. But this first episode back marked, what I think is probably a pretty big change in tone. Like I said, the show has been mainly, you got your cool hitman storyline stuff, and then you got some comedy and this relationship kind of stuff going on with Barry and Sally. But this season seems to be incorporating revenge, a lot of self-reflection, self-care on the part of Barry, a little mental health kind of stuff. And I think that moving toward a more serious tone, but still being able to interject that comedy like you have with pretty much anytime NoHo Hank is on the screen, or a couple scenes we're going to talk about later. When you have that, but you also have a really compelling main plot, I think that just enhances your show to be able to juggle both things pretty well. And I think that's what this show is going for this season. And I find that to be pretty interesting. I like this idea of Barry not just seeking out revenge or seeking out Fuchs, but also seeking out redemption and feeling better about himself and getting back to a better place. So I think this will be pretty interesting. We don't see much of Fuchs in this episode other than this like brief scene where we kind of see just how he's doing, what he's up to, hiding away in Chechnya. So not too much going on there, but it does seem like that's going to be a pretty interesting aspect as well. I'm assuming that Barry is going to go there, probably Hank as well, but we'll see. But we do get caught up on the statuses of Hank, Sally, Barry, and Kusino. And I'm starting out with Kusino because he doesn't get a lot of screen time in this episode, but what he does get is pretty interesting. He's told that Barry is essentially exonerated for killing his girl. Like, no, he wasn't involved in it. But as we know, Fuchs told him that Barry was behind it. Now, why he would just accept that, beyond me. But for whatever reason, he is convinced that Barry is behind it, and he was. So he's right about that. But he decides to handle it himself. He calls up Barry and is like, "Hey, come to the theater," which we find out is now closed. Which is another thing too. Like when I talk about the shift in the show's direction, it looks like we're getting rid of completely of like the acting class stuff. So like we're done with that. So Kusuno's role is going to have to be in some way either against Barry or somehow aligned with Barry against Fuchs as the season goes on. But yeah, that's interesting that we're essentially removing the acting lesson stuff from the show, unless they bring it back, which they might. Bring it back being the theater. But where was I? Oh yeah, so he decides to have Barry come through, and Barry comes in and he says his spiel, Kusuno does, and he pulls this gun and we just hear it fall apart. Like it sounds ridiculous, like he was holding something that was like just a tap away from just completely dismantling. If you could hear like the whole thing fall apart, not just like bullets and shit. It was pretty funny. But that's the kind of idea. That's the kind of what I'm talking about when I say taking something serious, which this was a very serious conversation, but interjecting that humor and having it work. And I thought that was pretty good in that scene. But Kusuno also had a scene that I thought was pretty good where, sorry, I gotta need to update my notes here. When he's leaving to go meet with Barry, you can tell he's showing a whole lot of concern, worry, seriousness. And he sounds like he's about to go somewhere. But he says, he kisses his grandson and he goes something like, it's all gonna be okay. Like, you don't say that before you leave to just go do something that's not gonna put you in danger. And I think I liked how his son seemed to catch on to that. But that was a nice little scene too, very subtle. We know that NoHo Hank is now officially dating Cristobal, which was interesting. Barry shows up at his house asking for a job, which I love this scene too, because again, like we see what Bill Hader can do from an acting perspective in this scene. But this is also a scene that's a very tortured scene for him. He looks like he's at his breaking point. He looks like he's about to cry and break down. He's begging for a job despite all the reasons that he has to not get one. And Hank, even though Hank just completely reads him accurately for every reason why he shouldn't do that, he still feels like Hank in this scene. Like he doesn't feel like super serious. Like you feel like, he might still offer him a job because he might look past it like, okay, I could see why I should want to kill you right now, but you seem really bad off, so I'm going to give you a job. Like I really thought Hank was going to like agree to this in this scene, but I love how at the end of this scene he says that "Get Rich or Die Trying" is from Shawshank Redemption, and like it's a mixture of two things, right? "Get Rich or Die Trying" is a 50 Cent line, and in Shawshank Redemption, I think it's Morgan Freeman's character that says something like, "You either get busy living or you get busy dying." I think that's the two things that he mixed up there, but I like that. It's one of those nice little jokes that it's gonna take a specific type of person to get it. But moving on to Sally, she appears to have made it big, has her own show, and she also seems to become something of a diva, manufacturing like this random pop-up from Barry, like to make it look like it was a spontaneous, like, oh, my boyfriend's here to give me flowers, and like they had totally planned this out beforehand. She completely like verbally undresses this woman who was at this weird meeting, this scene where she plays this scene. And like these two executives respond to it. That was a weird scene, man. Like I don't even really know how I felt about that scene. But afterwards, she really does this woman kind of dirty because I don't like when people are insulting, but they give you a different exterior. Like they make it sound like they're being nice and sweet, but what's actually coming out of their mouth is pretty shitty. And for her to say, I think she said something like, just stick to taking notes and better yet, next time you should be making my lunch during these meetings or some shit like that. Like that was a really shitty thing to say to that woman. And yeah, I think it's going a long way to making Sally a very a character who's going to need to be redeemed if she wants to be likable. And that's going to be tough going because it seems like Barry's not really sold on her at this point. He's, like I said, he's going through it. He's taking jobs off of Craigslist and ending up in situations like the Jeff situation at the beginning of the episode. And he also seems pretty lifeless at home. Like he's just sitting there playing video games. She's talking to him and he's focused on how his controller's not working anymore. He just, the unkempt beard, like he's just like not really, he's just not there. He's not where he needs to be at. But whatever idea he comes up with at the end of this episode when he's holding Kusuno at gunpoint is seems to have given him some life, just the thought of it. So I wonder if we're going to get like, okay, he's going to shave, he's going to clean himself up, and we're going to find out whatever this plan is. But like I said, this was a really enjoyable episode. I'm really glad this show is back. I hope to be covering it, which it really is going to largely rely on how many people watch this video and how well you guys respond to it. If you want to see me continue to talk about Barry, and then I'll make sure I get it done. But, you know, there's so many different things I want to cover that if this doesn't perform really well, there's really no point in me posting the video and taking all the time to do it if no one's going to watch it, when there's so many other things that I got on my plate. So if you want me to keep covering Barry, let me know in the comments. Check out, if you're new, check out what other videos, all the other videos I have on this channel. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 2. Peace.